There was a recent study that came out that found the Mediterranean diet was better when it came down to long-term fat loss than the ketogenic diet. I've talked about this in other videos months ago, but essentially what it discovered was that in the short term, the ketogenic diet worked really well for fat loss, better than the Mediterranean, but the Mediterranean diet worked really well long-term. So I wanted to break down sort of the fundamentals as to why this is the case for the Mediterranean diet to be so sustainable, but I also want to poke some holes in it on some big glaring things that we should change, because the Mediterranean protocol, I mean, that's a whole lifestyle, right? And if in America we try to adopt the exact principles of a Mediterranean diet, it might backfire, because a true Mediterranean lifestyle is completely different than just eating a Mediterranean diet, okay? So rather than tell you to go live like a European, I'm gonna tell you how to modify a Mediterranean diet to fit with a more American lifestyle. Now, after today's video, I put a link down below for 30% off through Thrive Market. So it's a 30% off discount link for your entire grocery order. But the coolest thing is I've launched a couple of products with them. So I've created a keto nut butter that is chocolate hazelnut, so it's like Nutella. I also have cinnamon Brazil, and then I have a dessert macadamia nut butter. So they're all sweet nut butters that are sweetened with allulose. So they can be used like dessert butters where they just taste super, super good. And those are included in your 30% off discount link. So if you want to try those out, now's the chance to get 30% off of them. So that link, again, 30% off everything, your entire grocery order, whatever you choose, plus a free $60 gift with any purchase. So that link down below, top line of the description. So first and foremost, one of the reasons why you may want to adopt a Mediterranean diet after doing a small amount of keto first is because what can happen is doing a short bout of keto can restore your ability to oxidize fats a little bit better. Now, there are some people out there that call it aerobic deficiency syndrome. It's sort of a made-up term, but what ADS is when your body has such a low metabolic base for utilizing fats that it really jumps to using carbohydrates for fuel at any opportunity. This means that you're left with a very poor fat oxidation rate. And it happens to people that are metabolically unhealthy, right? People that are overweight, people that have metabolic issues, syndrome X, all this stuff. Utilizing a ketogenic diet is very, very good for those people because right out the gate, you're conditioning the body to utilize those fats again. So it's almost as if, this isn't literal, but it's almost as if your body's doing a very low state of cardio all the time, as far as at least energy substrates are concerned, as far as what the body's using for fuel. So it's almost like you're going for a walk all the time, even when you're not, because your body, just to sustain life, is using the fats in a similar way as it would as if you were doing cardio. Enough about keto. Let's move into why the Mediterranean diet was so sustainable. Now, they found that long-term fat loss and weight loss circumference was great with Mediterranean, mainly because the fatty acid profile was great. Okay, so people started substituting refined grains for more of these olive oils, avocado oils, healthy nuts, things like that, even if they're relatively caloric. Now, when you actually look at the literal details of the study, like long term, the fat loss wasn't like ridiculously amazing. It just superseded keto. Like keto was great. People lost a lot of weight in the first month, and it took people doing the Mediterranean diet 3 months to lose what people lost in 1 month with keto. The difference is with Mediterranean, it just kind of continued, right? So what would you rather have? Well, I'd rather have both. So what's the issue with the Mediterranean diet in an American lifestyle? Let's take a look at what the Mediterranean people do. People in some parts of Europe and Turkey, Greece, you name it, right? They're active, okay? These cities were built in a time before cars, right? So they are all walkable. And if you were to try to put a lot of cars in that major metro area of, some of these European cities, it just wouldn't work. That's why people are driving smaller vehicles and mopeds around, because if you had a Ford F-450 in every family, there literally wouldn't be enough room on the streets, right? So these streets are designed for people to walk on. They're also cobblestone. Everything is designed for it. So the point is, without getting into like super heavy socio-demographic stuff, people are moving a lot. So people look at the Mediterranean diet, they say that's a joke because pasta, carbs, bread, this, that. These are all the demon foods. We don't want those. First of all, we have to be real. In Europe, there are completely different standards when it comes down to pasta, when it comes down to bread. Okay? There is even anecdotal evidence of people having gluten intolerances and then going to Europe and eating bread and pasta and having zero issues whatsoever. Okay? Not a lot of literature to back it up, but sometimes anecdotal is more important. Okay? I personally know two people that cannot even eat gluten in the US, but when they go to Europe, they can. They can eat sourdough bread, they can eat pasta, they can eat pizza, and they don't even get a glimmer of stomach discomfort. I can't tell you every detail because I'm not a pastatician or whatever they're called. Okay, point is, if we tried to adopt Mediterranean principles in the US, we'd be eating pizza. So that means we'd be getting Domino's pizza. We'd be eating pasta, so we'd go into Buca di Beppo, right? You get what I'm saying here, right? Even if we were like, okay, I'm gonna try to add some healthy prosciutto in there, I'm gonna add some flank steak, like we could make it Mediterranean and look sexy for our Instagram stories, but at the meat and potatoes of it, or should I say pasta and pizza of it, we're gonna be basically eating a standard American diet with a little bit more olive oil. So, unless you live in Europe, you need to radically modify the Mediterranean diet. But there's a few core things that you should remember as the basis for your Americanized Mediterranean approach. Your foundation needs to be protein. In the Mediterranean regions, their foundation is probably still moderately carbohydrate, followed closely by protein. But they're way more active than us. We just gotta call it like it is, okay? There is also literature that suggested that it is more metabolically beneficial to be walking throughout the day than it is to do like a major successful workout for 1 hour in the morning. I would rather you walk a lot throughout the day than take 1 hour to work out. I literally would. And they do that every day. They have the ability to oxidize carbohydrates and use those fuels way better than we do day in and day out. Maybe not metabolically, but just day in and day out, they're burning that. We're not. So we need to replace that with something that's going to do the work for us. What's really interesting about protein is protein yields quite a bit of caloric burn just in the pure digestion and metabolism of it. 20 to 35% of the calories that you get in from protein, those are going to get burned up just in the sheer existence of the protein and the metabolism of it. So let the protein go for the walk for you, right? That 20% calorie burn, like 100 calories of protein, you're really only yielding like 80 calories out of it because 20 calories just gets incinerated. That's basically like going for a walk. So how does that look, like literally speaking? Well, you still want to focus on the Mediterranean proteins. I would focus on things like maybe prosciutto, maybe things like lean beef, chicken, fish, yogurt, cottage cheese, those kinds of things, eggs, okay? But I want you to increase the lean proteins. So as much as I want you to eat eggs, I'd rather you increase the chicken, the poultry, the fish, because those are gonna be the ones that are the lower calorie. So I want those to just be the staple of your diet, okay? Those are gonna be the core foundation. Everything else can fall into place. I want you to be aware of a couple of things. In a Mediterranean style, most of the oils that they're consuming are going to be olive oils. They're going to be some avocado oils. There's going to be some polyunsaturated fatty acid oils. There's going to be some, nut and seed oils. They might have some sunflower oil here and there. Most of the fats, though, are coming from fish and olive oil and little bits you might get in pesto and things like that from like pine nuts. Now, in America, if you were to say add oils to your diet, what kind of oils would you be adding? Most of the even Mediterranean style foods, you can go to the healthiest grocery store and you can pick out a pesto. And I would probably go on record by saying more than 50% of them are probably sunflower or canola oil based, with not a glimpse of olive oil to be found. So with this, the American Mediterranean diet, you need to make sure that you're putting an emphasis on getting those same kinds of fats that they would be getting over there. What's going to happen if you start just adding loads of these kinds of seed oils and things like that? I'm not even opposed to seed oils, but they oxidize so dang fast. Like, why would we want to use an oil that's going to go bad in our body? It just doesn't make sense. I have no problem with olive oil, no problem with macadamia nut oil, no problem with avocado oil, no problem with a lot of these oils, even coconut oil, right? But we can't just lean into what seems like Mediterranean on the surface. So if you tried to eat Mediterranean at a restaurant, good luck, right? What I suggest you do longer term is, again, you focus on the lean protein, you focus on adding the olive oil and the things like that in. Focus on the dairy, okay? A lot of Mediterranean regions don't eat a ton of dairy, and when they do, it's usually going to be raw cheese and things like that. But if you can get raw dairy, go for it. Otherwise, aged dairy. So aged cheeses, aged Parmesan, Pecorino Romano, goat cheese, feta. These are the kinds of cheese you really want to lean into. The last thing we really want to focus on with your Mediterranean diet in the American culture is gut health focused. In Europe, it comes without saying. But in the US, you need to put more emphasis on the gut. So that means you need to lean into more soluble fibers that are added into your diet in a way that they may not be added in say, Europe. You might want to add a tablespoon of psyllium husk powder. You may want to add chia seeds or flax seeds. Because when they're cooking pizza crusts and pasta with like whole grains that have the husk, that have the fibers to them, they're getting that in. In the US, you're going to be spending a fortune trying to get high quality stuff like that. So you might have to add some flax in. You might have to add those whole grains in to get that fiber in. That's just going to be the way that it is. But the biggest, most important thing that you need to do if you're going to follow any Mediterranean style here is you need to intertwine it with a couple days per week of intermittent fasting. And the reason that I say that is because the literature is strong. Combining fasting with Mediterranean is highly, highly effective because you're getting the benefits of abstaining from food and the body getting good at utilizing fats and oxidizing fuels, along with the benefits of Mediterranean with improvements in HDL, improvements in LDL, the improvements in protein intake, the improvements in triglycerides, the improvements in metabolic function, mitochondrial health, the improvements in brain, the improvements in skin, all those things that come with monounsaturated fatty acid intake, with protein intake, with the active lifestyle, right? So if you're concerned that it's going to be bringing in too many carbohydrates to have fruit and veggies and starches here and there, offset it with fasting. Now, the other thing that you can do if you want to get more aggressive is still say, hey, I want to do low carb because keto worked for me. Just like in this study, they lost weight faster. You want to do it more sustainably? Try doing a form of keto that adds a Mediterranean flair with it. So that means you're doing everything a Mediterranean diet would do. You're just getting rid of any of the carbohydrates with the exception of maybe a little bit of fruit. So the literature is strong. Keto works fast. Mediterranean works long term. Bridging the gap and finding the balance for the both of them in an American way is how you're going to have success long term. I'll see you tomorrow.